Ladies and gentlemen, would you please rise for the playing of our national anthem?
Please be seated. At this time, I'd like to call Command Sergeant Major Tracy forward so he may introduce our guest speaker.
I'm good. Am I straight? Well, first of all, I don't have to introduce Captain King. Man of a lot of knowledge, and I'm sure we're all going to learn something from him here today. But what I would like to just thank the God in him. Thank the God in him to see fit to come down and educate us more about this fight that we have against homelessness and that we have against finding the right cure for our soldiers. And appreciate Major Bryant for this opportunity. Pastor Myers, and Mr. Whiteside. I just thank everybody. And there's no introduction, I guess, needed, sir. Just glad to have you here, and I appreciate you. We appreciate you here in Spartanburg. Thank you.
Oh, I gotta put this on. Well, if I was back home at my church at Grace Missionary Baptist Church, I would say, and all the people said amen. Amen. But being a Baptist preacher, you probably shouldn't give me too many amens, because then that would take me to another level, and that's not why we're here tonight. Let me also say thank you to Major Bryant and all of those who are instrumental, Mr. Whiteside, for reaching out to me and giving me the opportunity to come and talk about an organization, a people, a family that is very dear to my heart, and it's very dear because for 30 years I served in the United States Armed Forces as a chaplain. Many have asked me why the chaplaincy, and I said to them, it's a very simple answer. I was called to do so. Being a chaplain for me was not a profession, but it was a calling. And so I loved the military. I love the men and women that serve our great country, and it is great. And I would hope and pray that that we will continue to care for those that have made sacrifices of family, friends, loved ones, in order that we can enjoy the freedom and the freedoms that we enjoy in this great country, the United States of America. I was asked to talk about spiritual care of veterans and the utilization of non-religious methods to foster relationship with trust of something greater than ourselves. Let me just begin by saying that a veteran program should, and I would say must, include a body, mind, and spirit component. We train well. We do physical fitness tests. We eat well. We, as I would train with the Marine Corps, we would go on 25 to 30 miles hikes with a backpack on our back, with full armor of our gear. We were ready for battle because we trained how we wanted to fight. That was the body part, to be sure that you could pass the test of a physical fitness test. The mind is to getting your mind right. It's just something about going to war with a weak mind. But now that should not be foreign to us as Baptists or as Christians, because if I was at church, I don't want a weak-minded Christian around me, because because we are in a spiritual warfare. And so the Apostle Paul says that we need to put on the whole armor of God. And so I can't move around a lot, but right now I need to use my hand, because when I talk about putting on the whole armor of God, it is being equipped for warfare. So when a soldier, a sailor, a Marine, a Coast Guardsman, a DOD personnel, when they are training, when we run 5, 6, and 7 miles, we're not only getting our body right, but we're getting our mind right. And it's something about wearing the uniform that makes you feel like sometimes you're almost invincible. Now, we know that we're not invincible, but when you go through that training, you can't go through the training thinking that you're weak. You got to go through that training so you can develop your mind thinking that whatever God brings your way as a soldier or a military person, then you can handle it. The body, the mind, and the spirit. I was sharing earlier, as a chaplain, I was ordained by the National Baptist Convention, USA Incorporated. But my soldiers or my Marines or my sailors, they never ask me, Chaplain, what denomination are you? In my 30 years, I was never asked what my denomination was. But this is what I was asked constantly. Sir, can you pray for me? Sir, would you help me through a difficult situation? Chaps. I was called Chaps. I was called Padre. I was called Father, Chapo. Whatever name that they wanted to call me was okay with me, because when they saw me walking around with the cross, that brought the spiritual aspect to every individual that was in the command. And so for me, it's not a matter of whether we should take care of our veterans. Let me tell you that it's a requirement. And I would go as far as a minister to say, not only is it a requirement, it's a sin for us not to. Because the men and women in uniform, the men and women that serve with us in the Department of Defense, even though we have a volunteer military armed forces, we have been in a war now for 8 to 10 to 11 years, and many of them have lost family members, they have lost homes, they have lost friends, they have had to deal with things that the average person that have never been in war have never had to deal with. And I am convinced, not only have they not had to deal with it, I'm not sure that they can deal with it. I often tell family members when they say to me about veterans that my husband or my wife, they are more closed up. Sometimes they'll say they don't talk too much the way that they used to. And I encourage them to find veteran programs that they can get into, because it is something about being among family. And when we appoint a veteran to another veteran or to a veterans organization that is supposed to be in existence to help another veteran, then it's something about being in an area of comfortableness that affords them the opportunity to talk about those things that only another veteran, for the most part, can understand. So I'm encouraged to be a part of this groundbreaking experience of Major Bryant and Mr. Whiteside in establishing an organization to care for our veteran. During my 30 years, I worked very closely with nonprofit organizations. I work very closely with the Salvation Army, American Red Cross, and many others organizations. They help me as a chaplain to do my job well, because when we packed our bags to go to battle or to go to a foreign shore, there were family members who were left behind. And also let me include in there were ministers. We used to meet at least once a month with the pastors in the areas where I was assigned. And interestingly enough, my boss, when I was stationed at 2nd Marine Aircraft Wing, my boss welcomed the input and the advice and the recommendation from local ministers, because the local ministers were very key very key within the family program, or to help those veterans as well as active duty members, to help them to make it when their loved ones went on deployment. So, nonprofit organization, very important. Local pastors, very important. The local church, extremely important. So anything that we can do to assist those veterans to make it the transition from the battlefield back to the family, I would say is a wonderful thing. I get concerned sometimes as to whether or not we're doing enough for our veterans, because as the war draws down and as the war eventually comes to an end, things such as post-traumatic stress syndrome, I believe, is not only a problem now, but is going to be a problem in the future. And my prayer and hope is that organizations such as the one that Major Bryant and Mr. Whiteside are establishing and bringing together, I hope that those organizations will be organizations where our veterans can come, they can learn what resources are out there for them. They can learn how there are agencies that are out there to assist them. They can also be pointed in the right direction of their spirituality. And so I am just grateful tonight to be a part of this groundbreaking event of moving in a direction where we're going to care for our veterans.